It was a lavish gala under glittering chandeliers and polished marble floors. He stood there, hands clasped around a crystal glass of champagne, surveying the room with the confidence of a man who owned it all, because, in many ways, he did. William Preston, the billionaire oil magnate, had seen his empire stretch from coast to coast. Yet, amidst all the luxury and power, his eyes fell upon a face he thought he'd never see again. Elena, the woman he had discarded like a stain on his otherwise perfect life, stood at the corner of the room, grace in every step, confidence in every glance. The simple maid he had impregnated 18 years ago was gone. In her place was a strikingly beautiful woman. Her dark skin glowing under the soft lights, eyes sharpened by struggles, and lips curved into a serene smile. A lump formed in William's throat. Memories surged of the cruel words he spat at her, the way he forced her out of his mansion without a second glance. She had begged him, belly round with his child, tears streaming down her face. He had turned away, consumed by fear of scandal and societal judgment. Now, he could not tear his gaze away from her. His chest tightened with regret as he watched her glide through the crowd. His heart hammered with a dangerous realization: he wanted her back. Desperately. But how does one reclaim a woman he abandoned? William's mind raced, concocting a web of lies to pull her back into his life, into his bed, and just as he took a step toward her, Elena's eyes met his. A flicker of recognition flashed across her face, followed by the storm of pain he had left behind. William's breath caught. The empire he had built suddenly felt hollow, each dollar a grain of sand slipping through his fingers. As the room buzzed with laughter and music, William knew one thing: he would do anything to possess her again, even if it meant spinning a lie so big it could shatter what little was left of her trust. 18 years ago, Elena had been nothing more than a maid in the Preston mansion. Fresh out of high school, she had taken the job to support her ailing mother and younger siblings. William had been magnetic, a tall, impeccably dressed white man with a smile that could disarm anyone. She was naive, smitten by his charm, unaware of the cruel game he was playing. Their affair had been a whirlwind of stolen glances and late-night rendezvous. But when she fell pregnant, the fairy tale turned into a nightmare. William had accused her of trapping him, called her manipulative, and denied the child was his. She had cried, begged him to reconsider, but he had her thrown out. With nothing but the clothes on her back and a baby in her belly. Elena's struggle began. In the following years, William had married a woman from a wealthy family, cementing his position in high society. Yet, his marriage was as empty as his conscience. He often drowned his regrets in expensive whiskey, convincing himself he had made the right choice, but seeing Elena again stirred something dangerous within him. The billionaire crafted his first lie. He would tell her that he never knew she was pregnant, that his staff had hidden it from him. He'd pretend to be the victim of deceit, a man robbed of the chance to be a father. He approached Elena that night, his voice layered with practiced sincerity. "Elena," he began, "I had no idea. They kept it from me. Please, let me make it right." Her eyes narrowed, emotions flickering across her face: hurt, disbelief, anger. But William was relentless, weaving his deceit with polished words. He spoke of his regret, of a heart that ached for her and the child he never knew. His lies were the hoax, her residual feelings for him were the bait, and as the night stretched on, William knew he had planted the seed of doubt and, perhaps, the seed of a second chance. Elena had endured the unthinkable. Cast out with no money, no family to turn to, she had slept in homeless shelters, her stomach swelling as each day passed. The cruelty of strangers was a stark reminder of her new reality. Jobs were hard to come by, employers turned their noses at a pregnant black woman with no home address. Her children, twins with eyes as blue as the man who denied them, grew up hearing stories of a father who was busy or far away. As they matured, their questions grew sharper, each one a dagger to Elena's heart. Why doesn't Daddy visit? Did we do something wrong? Elena shielded them from the painful truth, determined to preserve their innocence. She worked as a waitress, a cleaner, even a street vendor, piecing together a life for them. Every hardship strengthened her resolve, chiseling away at her self-doubt until all that remained was a woman reborn. Over time, she saved enough to open a small bakery, her confections earning a reputation for being as sweet as her spirit. As the business flourished, so did Elena's confidence. Her beauty, once dulled by hardship, now shone brightly. The girl William had discarded was gone, replaced by a woman whose grace came from survival, but William was relentless. He began appearing at her bakery, buying bread he didn't eat, cakes he didn't need, always with those piercing eyes locked on her. He spoke of providing for their children, offering financial support that Elena had scraped by without. Each interaction wore down her defenses, until one day, his lies found fertile ground. The children, now curious teenagers, watched these exchanges with wide eyes. They knew nothing of the history, the betrayal, the cruelty. They only saw a father they had longed for and a mother whose smile faltered in his presence. Yet, beneath William's charming facade, his motives remained dark. Elena stood at the precipice of a decision that could either heal old wounds or reopen scars that had never fully closed. Elena should have known better. She had spent years building a life without him, hardening herself against the memories of his betrayal. But standing before William now, she felt the weight of his words pressing into her like a warm embrace laced with thorns. "I never knew, Elena," he whispered, his voice low and full of practiced sorrow. "If I had, I would have never let you go." A part of her wanted to laugh in his face. Another part, a foolish, desperate part, wanted to believe him. She folded her arms across her chest, her dark eyes locking onto his. "Do you expect me to believe that? That all these years, you never once wondered what happened to me? Elena, I was told you left on your own." "My staff," he sighed, running a hand through his perfect golden hair. "They said you didn't want anything to do with me. That you took some money and vanished." Her stomach twisted. That was the exact opposite of what had happened. She had begged, pleaded, only to be thrown out like trash. "You're lying," she spat, her voice trembling with restrained anger. William took a step closer, his cologne suffocatingly familiar. "Then let me prove it to you." She frowned. "How?" "Let me be there for our children." His voice softened, the words dripping with false sincerity. "Let me make up for lost time." Elena's breath caught. Her children, for years, she had given them every ounce of love she had. But they had always asked about him. They had always wondered. Could she really deny them the chance to know their father? William saw the hesitation flicker in her eyes. He knew he had her right where he wanted her, but Elena had no idea that this was just the beginning of his deception. The first time William met his children, he put on a performance worthy of an Oscar. He arrived in a sleek black Rolls-Royce, stepping out in a perfectly tailored suit, the very image of wealth and power. His smile was wide, but his hands were clammy. He had never been nervous before, not even in billion-dollar board meetings. Then he saw them, Michael and Maya, his breath caught in his throat. They were 18, mirror images of each other, his sharp blue eyes, Elena's rich brown skin. It was unsettling. They were proof of his past sins, standing right before him. Michael eyed him with suspicion, his arms crossed. Maya, however, studied him with quiet curiosity. "Hey, kids," William said, forcing a smile. I know I have a lot to explain." Michael scoffed. "You think?" Maya nudged her brother, then turned to William. "Where have you been?" Her voice was soft, but there was an edge to it. William sighed, slipping into the role of the regretful father. "I never knew about you. If I had, I would have been there." Michael didn't buy it. He had grown up watching his mother struggle, long hours at the bakery, sleepless nights, bills paid at the last second. "That's bull. Mom cried over you. She begged for help. You threw her out." William's jaw clenched. He hadn't expected such direct defiance. "I was misled," he said, shaking his head. "But I don't want to make excuses. I want to make things right." Maya tilted her head. How? William smiled, his lies flowing like silk. By being in your lives. By giving you everything you deserve. He turned to Elena, his expression softening. And by making things right with your mother. Elena's stomach churned. She didn't like where this was going, and she had every reason to be worried. William's plan was simple: win over the kids, rekindle the spark with Elena, and pull her back into his bed. But there was another layer to it, one he hadn't spoken of. His empire was crumbling. A string of bad business deals had drained his resources. His public image was tarnished by a messy divorce, and investors were pulling away. He needed a fresh start. A new narrative. Elena, with her rags to riches story, was perfect. The media would eat it up, a billionaire reconnecting with the love he lost, finding redemption through the family he never knew. If he played it right, his image would be restored, his business would thrive again. And as a bonus, he'd have Elena back in his bed, where she belonged. He just had to break down her walls first, and so, he played the long game. He took Michael and Maya on expensive outings, fancy dinners, exclusive events, helicopter rides over New York City. Elena watched from a distance, her heart heavy. The kids were falling for it. Michael, still skeptical, was slowly warming up. Maya, however, was completely captivated. And then William turned his charm on Elena. He brought her gifts, things she used to dream of. Jewelry, designer clothes, a new car. He praised her success, admired her beauty, acted like the man she once fell for. It was overwhelming. One night, after a particularly elegant dinner, he walked her home. The kids were inside, and the city air was thick with unspoken words. William turned to her, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "You're even more beautiful than I remember," he murmured. Elena stiffened. "I never stopped thinking about you," he continued, his voice low and intimate. "I made a mistake, Elena. Let me fix it." Her breath hitched. For the first time in years. She felt her walls crack, and William saw it, so he leaned in, his lips hovered inches from hers, his breath warm. "Elena," he whispered, "let me love you again." For a split second, the past and present blurred, but then, no. Elena stepped back, her heart pounding. William blinked, caught off guard. "You can't buy your way back," she said, her voice trembling. "You can't erase what you did." She turned and walked inside, leaving him standing alone. For the first time, William felt something foreign, defeat, and he didn't like it, but he wasn't done yet. Not even close. Elena tried to ignore the feeling creeping up her spine, that William's presence was a danger she hadn't fully grasped yet. For weeks, he played the perfect father, the perfect regretful lover. He showered the twins with gifts, took them to private islands, and even started making public appearances with them, letting the media capture their heartwarming reunion. Elena hated it. She saw right through him. Yet, Michael and Maya were growing attached, and that terrified her. Then came the first real sign that William's game had another layer. It happened on a cold Friday morning. Elena arrived at her bakery, only to find the doors locked. By the city, a notice was plastered on the window: business shut down due to regulatory violations. Her stomach dropped. "What?" she whispered, her hands trembling as she ripped the paper off. Regulatory violations. That didn't make sense. She had all the permits, passed every health inspection, and ran an honest business, unless. She turned, heart pounding, and standing across the street, watching from the driver's seat of his black Rolls-Royce, was William. Their eyes met. Elena's blood went cold. He smirked, then drove away. She barely registered her own shaking breath. This wasn't a coincidence. This was him. He wasn't here to fix things. He was here to control her. That night, William showed up at her doorstep, wine in one hand, an innocent smile on his lips. "I heard about your bakery," he said, feigning concern. "Such an unfortunate situation." Elena's fists clenched. "Don't play dumb. I know it was you." His expression was unreadable. "That's a bold accusation." "Don't insult me, William," she snapped. "You shut me down because I wouldn't fall for your lies." He sighed, stepping closer. Elena, I didn't want to do this. But you left me no choice. Her breath hitched. He admitted it. William leaned in, his voice dropping to a whisper. You can fix this, you know. She swallowed hard. How? He smiled. Come back to me. Her stomach churned. You're disgusting. He chuckled. No, sweetheart. I'm practical. Your business is gone. Your children adore me now. You're backed into a corner. The only way out is me. Elena's entire body trembled with rage, but she refused to let him see her break. Instead, she stepped closer, meeting his gaze head-on. You think you own me? William smirked. I think you'll do what's best for your kids. She inhaled sharply. This wasn't about love. This was about power, and now, she had to fight back. Elena had spent her entire life surviving. Now, it was time to win. She refused to let William destroy what she built. And she refused to let him use her children as pawns, so she started digging. She hired a private investigator, someone who specialized in corporate corruption. What they found was shocking. William was on the brink of bankruptcy. His company was under federal investigation for illegal dealings, and worse, he had used Maya and Michael to rebuild his public image. Elena's rage burned hotter than ever. She had proof. Now, she just needed the right moment to strike. William had planned a grand event, a charity gala where he would introduce the world to his reunited family. Elena played along, smiling for the cameras, but as he raised his glass to toast to his second chance at fatherhood, the ballroom doors burst open, the press flooded in, screens around the room flickered to life, displaying evidence of his crimes: bank fraud, illegal deals, tax evasion, and then interviews with his former business partners, confirming his downfall. Gasps filled the air. William turned pale, and then Elena stepped forward, holding the microphone. You didn't care about your children, she said, her voice strong. You cared about your legacy. You used them for the cameras while you tried to force me back into your bed. A murmur spread through the crowd. William's mask shattered. The FBI agent stepped forward. William Preston, one of them announced, "You're under arrest." Click. The handcuffs snapped around his wrists. His blue eyes locked onto Elena. There was no love in them now. Only rage. You think you've won? He hissed. Elena stepped closer, lowering her voice so only he could hear. No, she whispered. I know I have. William was gone. Elena reopened her bakery, stronger than ever. Michael and Maya, now fully aware of their father's true nature, stood by her side, and for the first time in 18 years, Elena felt truly free. No more lies, no more regrets, just peace.
Please subscribe, like, comment and share this video. It means a lot to us. Thank you.